I'm ready for your questions, but before you do ask me any questions, I'd like to... Can I use that? It's probably easier.
It's another one.
Okay. I've said to some people here as I came in that I've just had a 3-hour live interview on radio with an American radio station. I don't know if you've given talks on the radio, but 3 hours is a long time. But what became interesting is that towards the end of the interview, it occurred to both the interview and myself to ask the question, well, why are we doing it in Dubai? I mean, why is it here? And I suppose in an indirect way, because we semi-planned it this way. It so happens, of course, to be, and I don't need to sort of emphasize this, it happens to be in a big world event, something that affected the whole world really is the American elections and the result of these American elections. And it happens to be here in Dubai, where I've come back after a long absence from the Gulf. I was here in the Gulf in the early 70s, before I became, to be more precise, I should indicate, I'm an author Egyptologist. I write about Egyptology, in contrast to archaeological work. But I was here in Dubai as an engineer in the early 70s, and I was mostly in the Gulf region. I worked in Dubai, I worked in Abu Dhabi, and mostly in Oman. And of course, the change that has occurred here since the 70s is stunning. But being an historian, what struck me most, although we do know a lot about Dubai without having been here, you're in the news all the time. I'm a big fan of tennis, and Doha's tennis, and your conferences here, and it's become a big talk in the world. You're very talked about. Even my daughter wants to come on holiday here. I mean, it's become the in place. But what struck me here as an historian is the renaissance, in a sense, of cosmopolitanism. What I mean by that is the amazing variety and blending of so many nationalities and cultures and belief systems and religions and art. I mean, the architecture that is springing here is amazing. You can feel this creativity of this synergy of ideas. And to me it's fantastic, because it's in a sense a model that used to exist, incidentally, in the ancient world. I mean, what America is, in a sense, is a model for us, which has gone wrong and which has gone right again. This model where cultures have molded together, retaining their traditions and origins, but remove the conflict between them. It's a wonderful message that's going around the world. I come from a city that used to be like that. I mean, I was born in Alexandria, which was the cosmopolitan center of the ancient world, and even in contemporary times, where a variety of cultures and nationalities and ideologies not only blended together, but produced wonderful things. I'm talking of the periods where Alexandria was literally the lighthouse of the world, where we invented geometry, for example, where astronomy was born, where we founded the first universities, the first libraries, and all this came through the melting pot of the best of each culture. This, to me, is something wonderful that we have lost, and I see it again in the Gulf. I mean, it's happening here. So, what better place to talk about what I'm about to talk, which I call it the backbone of what is happening in the world, because this blending, we really have to go to the root origins of where we come from, and this is what I'll just tell you today, because we think we found very serious evidence that where most of what we call civilization started. And it comes in a most surprising place that we didn't expect at all. And suddenly, the whole face of archaeology and history is beginning to change, and will change because of these small discoveries that have huge implications. Perhaps as an analogy, it's not so much the, when we think of archaeological work and discoveries, we imagine the tomb of Tutankhamun, or discovering a new pyramid, or a lost city. But sometimes a small thing. I mean, can you imagine that when in '69 the Americans had gone on the moon, that they had found a footstep, that they had found a scratch that was artificial? It would have completely changed our perception of who we are and the universe. So it doesn't have to be a lost city. Well, the equivalent of that footstep on the moon has been discovered in the Egyptian Sahara. Evidence of a presence of a lost culture, and more interestingly, that this lost culture almost certainly spawned what we know as the pharaonic civilization. There's many surprises here, many changes of perception that will occur, so I leave the floor open to you to ask me whatever you want to ask me about this. First question, anybody's got one? Okay, let me tell you what it's about, so you can prompt your question. I'll start from two little stories that will give you the setting. In 1974, that's where one of the stories starts, a group of American anthropologists were traveling in the southwest deserts of Egypt, about 100 kilometers west of Abu Simbel, where there's a famous temple of Ramses II, the great temple of Abu Simbel. And they stopped. This is one of those flukes of history. Many discoveries are made by fluke. They stopped to have what they call a comfort rest. Basically, they stopped to have their ablutions. They had been traveling for many days. And when they stepped out of the cars, the four-wheel drives, they suddenly realized that all around them were vestiges of a prehistoric culture. Stone implements, strange grinding basins, but more intriguingly, huge, large boulders sticking out of the sand. At first they thought they were natural boulders, but then they realized that these were put in geometrical patterns, going along in straight lines, forming circles, clearly some sort of ceremonial center. They asked for permission to start a project there. Very quickly, the project was dated. They began to find little signs of the remains of the human presence that was there. And the carbon dating provided extraordinary dates going back to about 7000 BC. So far, nothing very unusual, because we did find prehistoric sites in the Sahara before, and not just in Egypt, but in the Moroccan, Tunisian, and Algerian Sahara. What was different about this site was these strange boulders in alignments. It took them about 20 years to finally realize that they may be looking at an ancient astronomical center. They brought in I'll give you some names, so in case you want to quote, the anthropologist who made the original discovery is called Fred Wendorf, from the Southern Methodist University of Texas. He's now retired. And they brought in an astronomer whom we call in this business archaeoastronomers. They're astronomers who study ancient astronomies, and particularly with ancient monuments, because many of the ancient cultures align their monuments to the celestial bodies. And this man, this professor, he came from Boulder, Colorado University, called Kim Malville, very quickly realized that what he was looking at was alignments of this stone.